Good evening and welcome to Monday's Midlands Today from the BBC. Tonight, West Midlands police are cracking down on prostitution after a series of sexual assaults and rapes on sex workers in the last year. More than 200 people have so far been arrested during the operation in Walsall.
In a moment, we'll be talking to an organisation that campaigns for the rights of sex workers. But first, Shirley Henry has this exclusive report.
Friday night in Walsall's red light district. It's one of the busiest nights for one of the oldest trades, prostitution. And the police are cracking down.
We're in the area when you want us. Call us in. The business of the sex worker is incredibly risky. And it has inherent risk that's always been that way since the time began. And it's really important that we do everything we can to make that industry, try and reduce the activity of the sex workers, but ensure that they take as very limited risk as they possibly can.
This is Operation Nominal. It began last year. So far, 39 curb crawlers have been charged and 168 sex workers prosecuted. In the last 12 months, 8 sex workers have reported rapes to the police, and there's been 3 sexual assaults. The women I've spoken to say this is only the tip of the iceberg. Gemma worked the streets for 16 years. She was addicted to heroin. She's been repeatedly raped, on one occasion 3 times in 1 month. One was a gang rape. She didn't tell the police.
Even though I'm a prostitute and I'm getting money for it, they still had no right. I didn't give my consent. They left bruises. They left mental scars. You've got 8 girls that have come forward, which is brilliant, which is a major move forward. But we need more, because I know there's more out there from experience. And the police, they must be doing, that sounds terrible, but they must be doing something right if these 8 girls have come forward. Or has the worst happened to these girls, the most unimaginable things?
We've had successful prosecutions. That's been based on incredible intelligence that we've built up. The fact that they come to us now, I think down is to trust and confidence within the police service.
Back in Walsall and a breakthrough. And 2 suspects are caught.
Turn off your engine, please. Thank you very much. Don't worry about your drink, thank you. Here you come. Here you come. Come on, darling, you all right? This is a gentleman, he's been observed by officers to seek the services of a sex worker. We're actually in the grounds of a church. So this is where people will come to pray. It's unacceptable that this is happening here.
The police have just caught this young woman in this church courtyard in Walsall. She'll be charged, she'll be bailed and appear in court within the next few days. But why would she take that risk?
It's like catch-22. Do you know what I mean? A lot of the girls have got habits. To fund them habits, they're going to have to do it. It's either shoplifting or prostitution. Either way, they're getting a criminal record.
Have you ever been attacked or raped while you're
No,
on the streets?
I haven't.
Do you know anyone who has?
Yes, I have. A friend died 3 years ago, 4 years ago now, by a client.
In Walsall?
Yes, in Walsall.
How does that make you feel?
Well, you have to get on with it. You have to move on. If you think, you know what I mean, think too much into depth in it, you never come out your front door again, would you? I mean, there's people die every day, isn't there? Really.
This man told the police he wasn't doing anything wrong. He's been charged and will appear in court. He'll face a fine.
Would they be willing that their daughter was still in their body on the streets? Would they be willing to have it outside their streets? The answer always would be no. So why did they choose that they can do it in other areas of the West Midlands? It's not acceptable, and I'm doing everything I can to make sure that stops.
For the police, the crackdown on prostitution is a constant battle. But if they can keep just one woman safe, it's a job well done. Shirley Henry, BBC Midlands Today, Walsall.
Well, let's talk now to Catherine Stevens from the International Union of Sex Workers. She's in our London studio now. A very good evening to you, Miss Stevens.
Hi.
First of all, let me ask you, how big a problem are attacks on sex workers?
Well, as you heard from the package, it is an experience that a lot of people have, particularly if they're selling sex on street. And one of the things I'd say from what I've heard is it sounds as if the policy adopted by the local police force is very contradictory and actually would work well from the evidence we know about what increases violence against people who sell sex, would actually work to increase the violence people experience rather than actually target it.
Why do you say that, though?
Because there's an inherent contradiction between the police role of prosecution and protection. So they talk about having successfully prosecuted a number of women and a number of clients who've paid for sex consensually.
OK, what should they be doing then?
Well, we'd like to see adoption of the Merseyside model nationwide, which has achieved a 90% conviction rate for crimes of violence against street sex workers and a 68% conviction rate for rape. That means that the police prioritise protection rather than prosecution. They treat crimes against sex workers as hate crime, and they work closely with local services to build trust from sex workers in the police.
So obviously your organisation tries to protect women, but this work is dangerous, it's unregulated. How really can it ever be made safe?
Well, violence occurs against people in all occupations. For example, there's an 85% rate of 85% of people working in A&E have experienced violence in the last year. So actually, the violence that people experience in the sex industry is not unique. But what we do know is that if we look at what works, things like the Merseyside model, we can successfully target violence, and that's what we'd like to see, rather than people just saying it's inevitable, it can't be avoided.
OK, well, for many women involved in prostitution, the reality is it's a cycle of violence and coercion, often caused by poverty. Doesn't there need to be more help to get these women out of these situations altogether?
While that isn't necessarily the case for most people, for instance, the majority of people, between 70 and 90% of people work indoors, which is very different from working on street. Absolutely, the IUSW works closely with the UK network of sex work projects. There are about 60 specialist services nationwide, and we'd like to see those receive full and adequate funding to provide services that people actually need, rather than things that make our lives more dangerous.
OK, Catherine Stevens, thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you.
Still to come this evening, a new campaign